Dream, never give up, and do not forget your roots. These are not just lines from a keynote speech, but these are quiet words a father once told his daughter. A daughter who grew up in a very small town called Ambarnath, a town which had two autos to take her to school. She grew up reading one romantic novel a day, a romantic rebel, if I may call, who believed that the world could be a much bigger place than the town she grew up in. One night, teenage her, fueled with passion and conviction, picked up a tiny marker and wrote on the wall, "I want to be an engineer, not a doctor." No hesitations and no debates. Ambition sometimes shows up in forms of graffiti. From falling in love with Fortran in the third year of her engineering, to teaching herself Pascal and C, to walking into a walk-in interview which probably shaped the next 3 to 4 decades of her life, she chose herself before the world could choose her. She built products before talking about product was even a cool thing. She led transformations before transformation was a cool corporate buzzword. At Oracle, Dell, SAP, and Edgeworth, she has built, led, and transformed teams, products, and cultures. And at every stage of her life, she has always dared to stretch and step up beyond the horizon. Today, she leads Broadridge Financial Solutions India as the managing director, where she mobilizes thousands of technologists across technology, product, consulting, managed services, and innovation. She also powers fintech startups, works closely with a lot of universities, and is a certified executive coach. But here's my favorite part. At every point in her life, she constantly says that she's still learning every single day. Her journey is not just about growth, it's about innovation, it's about conviction, passion, ambition, and more clearly, returning to the true sense of ambition, which is adding value beyond ourselves. So, ladies, please join me in welcoming our leader, coach, technologist, and a culture builder, Ms. Sheenam Ohrie. Hello. Whichever is comfortable.
That was probably the coolest introduction I've ever got in my entire life. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
I just want one thing to be corrected. Anzi is also here somewhere, I'm sure. It's SAP. It's not called SAP.
Okay. Yeah. My bad, sorry. Firstly, I would like to apologize on behalf of Bangalore traffic that you had to sit through it.
Okay. Bangalore gets you used to traffic.
Okay. So the first question is about your origin. So you often refer to your childhood at Ambarnath with a lot of affection. So how did that environment sort of stir up the ambition in you? And what did that teenage girl who wrote on the wall saying, "I want to be an engineer," believe in that particular moment?
So two different questions. I'll start with Ambarnath. Ambarnath is no longer a small town. When I was growing up, it was. How many of you have seen the movie Badlapur? How many of you know Ulhasnagar? So Ambarnath is a town between Ulhasnagar and Badlapur, famous for chemical industry. So my father was a part of the chemical industry at that point of time. There were only 3 companies there, Dharamsi Morarji, Garlic, and one more match factory. Father was a part of both of them. Growing up in Ambarnath was like growing up in a community. All of us knew each other. We knew, who's who of the town, whatever, right? It had, like she said, 2 autos. You had to go the previous day to the auto driver's house and say, "I want to go to the station because I have luggage with me, so I'm booking you to come to my house at such and such time." Young town, like I told you, 2 schools, both of them were co-ed. Yeah, 2 schools, 1 cinema theater, 1 hotel, I still remember. But what it did, I think, was instill an ability to do multiple things together, right? So whether it was taking part in a dance competition, always being there when you have the annual cultural event, on stage, talking, debating, building relationships, collaborating, ensuring that you are competitive, but you're still very collaboratively competitive. A skill that today is so sought after. I think is something that I built in Ambernath. Um, because it was a small town, there was a lot of hunger, a lot of necessity to do well, right? Small towns do that for us in India. So the focus on academics was high. But what the school also did was ensure that there was enough focus on other activities. So there was kind of a well-rounded personality that came out. We moved from Ambernath to Thane in um, when I finished my 7th standard, did my 8th, 9th, 10th from Thane. Thane was a very different experience because it was the first time we were really moving into a city, and understanding the dynamics of the city, understanding what it takes to not walk to your school but take a bus to school and stuff like that. But the incident that you're talking about, the writing on the wall, actually happened in Bangalore. I was in my 11th standard or 12th possibly. And my mom had this ambition that my daughter should be a doctor. No doctors in the family. When there is a doctor in the family, the entire family gets uplifted. And science was always a favorite, but biology was never the favorite of the sciences. Um, Cutting frogs and dissecting cockroaches used to give me the creeps. So there used to be these long emotional debates at home, and moms can be emotional, right, as to how it is, you need to be a doctor and you need to be this, and that's something that you are really good at. And then she would put the angle to it that women are really good doctors, right? And you can be really good with medicine and stuff like that. So one fine day when everybody was asleep, actually it was like graffiti. I took pieces of paper and I wrote on that I want to be an engineer and not a doctor. And all the walls, including the portion of the roof that I could reach, had that put up. Right? So in the morning when my parents woke up, my father, I still remember, he told my mother, I said, debate closed. we are not talking on this topic again. That didn't stop my mother. But I think it paved the path to also applying for engineering courses and not just medical courses. My mother ensured that I wrote my medical exam. I tried very hard not to do it well. I still got a rank that got me a seat, and even when I was filling up my final admission for my engineering, she said, you still have that chance. But I think in my mind I was very clear, physics and maths, it was logic. I love solving problems. I love the fact that I can play with numbers. So engineering was the choice. So that's how the engineering happened.
I think in the first question, you touched every aspect that probably we have questions lined up for.
Okay.
It's like breaking barriers. And then you said something about competitiveness coming from a town and being fiercely hungry. And then keeping that ambition alive throughout.
Yes.
So our questions to follow are about the same thing.
We talk about it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about leadership, because that's the main agenda we are here today. So in one of your talks that I was going through,
And you have done a lot of research.
I heard you saying that leadership, a very key ingredient of leadership, is to invest in our teams and build the teams. So what piece of advice would you give to keep that alive in such a fiercely competitive as well as a very, power-driven environment where everything is changing constantly?
So one of the early lessons that I learned at Citl, which became iFlex, now Oracle, is that, you know, it's very important to keep reimagining yourself. And that came not because we were told about it, but because, the framework of operations was that. Um, you join as a fresher, typically you would be put into a testing organization. What does testing organization do to you? You learn the product, you learn the functionality, you learn the domain. From a test organization, you can either move to an implementation organization or to a development organization. And it's necessary that you move every 18 to 24 months. It was a growing organization, so role rotations used to happen very easily. Once you have done implementation, you come back into development, you do development. And what does that do to you? You understand what the customer is saying, what the customer's pain points are with your products, and you try and ensure that people learn from that. So the role rotation every 18 to 24 months while you were in the same product but doing different things really helped open up the mind to a lot of things, right? And in that process, what we learned was that what you're doing today is not something that you have to do tomorrow. But somebody has to keep doing what you're doing today, which essentially means that you have to continuously keep making yourself redundant. And if you have to grow, somebody else has to do your job, right? That's critical. So I know redundancy can be a term that is really scary for a lot of us. But if you strive to be redundant, if you are confident in your own skin, and you're good at what you're doing, you will always find something better to do in the company that you are in or possibly outside. But you will find something to do, always. So strive to see how you grow others into doing what you are doing, letting them learn the ropes so that you can then move on to another pasture is, I think, very, very important lesson for leadership. And this I learned very early in life that, the more you groom people, the more you train other people, the more you allow other people to do your job, you will definitely get more opportunities to grow. Otherwise, there is no growth.
You just mentioned about mentoring,
Yes.
uh, teaching other people do your job so that somebody fills the spot. You've also worked very closely and mentored startups. So nowadays, with a lot of fresh talent coming into the industry, there is this concept of mentoring and reverse mentoring.
Yeah.
So how would you view that, and how important is reverse mentoring for that matter? For anybody, for a leader, for probably a fresher, or for a intermediate, or even for somebody who's very experienced. So
Yeah.
how do you view that?
So I'm going to first talk about a little bit about mentoring. I don't know how many of you here have mentors. How many people in the room who have mentors? Good, right? What does mentorship do to you? Mentorship does to you that you learn from the other person. The other person's already made mistakes, right? And the other person therefore has the experience to tell you, to teach you, to empower you to say, don't make the same mistakes again, right? Very, very important. Take mentorship to the next level of sponsorship, right? As you grow in your careers, it's not just important to have a mentor, it's also important to have a sponsor. A sponsor is also a mentor, but sponsor is somebody who has enough power in the organization to be able to represent you on a table that you are not there. So mentors and sponsors are really critical at any point of time. And if you are getting mentorship, please ensure that you're giving back, right? For every mentor that you have, you should have at least 2 mentees. Because you will learn from your mentees also. I promise you that you will learn from your mentees also. Coming to reverse mentoring for people like me, right, who spent 35 years in the industry, we don't know how people like you think, right? People like Aishwarya is thinking. For me, if I have to work with Aishwarya and I have to be successful in my role, it's important that Aishwarya is successful. For me, it's important to understand people like her, people like you, what triggers you, what ignites you, what causes that hunger to come in, what are your value systems, what are your belief systems, what are your behaviors. If I don't understand that, then I am not being as productive as I can be as a leader. And that's where reverse mentoring comes in. So if I have somebody who's telling me what appeals to them, right, it always will help me become a better leader. What does it do to somebody like, somebody who's a young person? It gives them an audience with a leader, right? Which essentially means that if that leader has a new position coming up, okay, and you're strong enough, that leader is going to consider you. So it opens doors for you. But for the leader itself, for somebody like me, it's a great education mechanism because you really learn, you're really drinking from the hose, right? You're drinking water from the hose. That's what reverse mentoring does.
I mean, that's such an important point that you said because reverse mentoring is not just about expressing your views. It opens doors to a lot of opportunities,
Correct.
which I'm currently facing, and I'm getting a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
I could really resonate with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I said in the introduction, you've led multiple technology transformations across various companies, and you've led them, curated them, all of that. So how has your leadership philosophy evolved throughout the years as opposed to what it was before and what it is now?
I think the evolution happens with experiences.
Okay.
What is right, what is wrong, what works, what does not work changes with time. I'll give you a very simple example. When I was possibly your age, or maybe a little older, maybe a year older, I was, we had a team building workshop, which was organized in Seattle, and one of the leaders of Seattle came and spoke to us at the end, and he told me that you're always having fun. You're always giggling, which is who I was at that point of time. But we've started to see a side of you that is very good at work. And it made me pause and reflect on who I want to be perceived as. What should be that leadership brand that I am bringing to the table? Because even at that point of time, leadership was important, right? Whether you're a 2-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 30-year-old, it has different variations of leadership involved at that time, right? And I asked myself, do I need to be perceived as somebody who's always having fun and giggling, even though I love to have fun and I will continue to have fun? Or do I have to have a different brand statement and therefore a different persona that is perceived by different people, right? So leadership evolves over time. One of the things that I've done is I have asked myself, what do I want to be 2-3 years from now? And if that is a different thing from today, then, how do I learn towards it? When I started off being a manager, there was a lot of telling, right? A first-time manager is also very insecure, has, the transition from being an individual contributor to a people leader is a tough transition. But a first-line manager does a lot of telling, right? Do this, do this, do this. Today in the world of agile in technology, it is much lesser. A leader is supposed to be a coach. But a first-line manager, there is a lot of hand-holding. As you progress in life, how do you move from telling to asking to enabling, right? I think that's the progression that a leader needs to make. Can I tell my leaders today, go do this? The answer is no, they'll get humiliated. Okay? So how do I guide them? I guide them by enablement. I ask them a lot of questions. I ask them why they are doing what they're doing. I ask them why they are saying what they are saying. I ask them sometimes when I believe they're going down the wrong path, I ask them, is this the best way of doing something that they're doing? And that kind of, motivates them to start to think. I'll give you a very simple example of today, right? We have a leadership offsite that we are going to be doing in December. And we have gone through, we're in our 3rd week of exercises that we're giving to our leaders. And these are all VPs and above. So in the first exercise, it was define what your brand statement should look like. The second one was go out, find 4 people that you generally don't work with, and get feedback from them on the brand statement, and also get feed forward. And the third exercise, which is during the course of this week, is to think about 1 to 3 actions that you will take between now and 31st of March. And some people have already come back with answers to exercise 3. And my job is to ensure that they are thinking big, they're thinking blue sky. So my job is not to tell them, listen, this action that you're taking is too tactical. My job is to ask them whether this will create the impact they want to create. And people have already come back and told me, no, let me think a little bit more. So sometimes it's necessary to do that. There are times in chaos where you will, say, let's do A, B, C, D, right? But generally there shouldn't be so much chaos around you. So I think brands evolve, but some things you have to keep constant. Do people trust you, right? Are you doing what you said you will do? Are you doing it in the right way? Can you sleep well in the night after doing what you did? I think the trust factor is important, right? Do people around you generally believe that if Sheenam is doing something, she will do it in the right possible way? That fabric of trust has to remain. That should not change, right? Ambitions change, aspirations change, what you want to be, what you want to be seen as, what you want to be perceived as, has to evolve. Does that help you?
Yes, definitely. I have a follow-up question by what you just said. You said something like short-term goals, that is 2 to 3 years from now, we'll have something that I want to be.
Correct.
What would you say so that we can, tell ourselves that position or that role or wherever we want to get to remains unwavering? Or is it okay if that wavers from time to time and that changes? And how do we approach that?
See, changes will happen. First of all, you should not have just one goal, because the organization at that point of time may not have that role available. So you should be having at least 2 or 3 paths to say, I'm X today, I can be Y, Z, or A. And to be that, this is what I need to learn, this is what I need to be, right? But the organization may change its course, and you may say, scrap all these 3 and do something else. Your thought process, your mantra of life may change, and you may want to drop it. As long as you're learning and as long as you believe you're moving ahead, it's important that that happens. Right? I've completed 4 years in this role, and in April of this year, when I was at about 3.5, I decided that I think my first S-curve for this role is done. So I started putting together what that next S-curve will look like, and what therefore the organization should be prepared for. So if in the next 4 years we need to change and achieve something, how do you prepare for that already? Right? So that evolution, that thought process, that internal motivation to keep changing and to keep becoming better, right, is important. Being 1% better every day, as they say, is a very powerful mantra.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Let's get to know you a little bit more.
Okay.
So,
am I going to be scared?
I don't know.
Okay.
Probably you can answer it after I ask the question.
Okay.
So, what is that one decision that you took early on or in between your career, which you felt was a very huge risk at the time?
Yeah.
But now looking back, you feel that was exactly the right thing at the right time that I did?
15 years at Citl, iFlex, it had become Oracle. It had started to become Oracle at that point of time. I decided I wanted to restart again. we were 25 of us who were hired on a road show, and we made still 40 people. So I said, let's go back and join a small company to, make it big again, to grow along with the company. Citl Lifelex was a made in India product company. We grew with the company grew with us. So there was no formality in the organization. There was absolutely nothing like I send you a mail, you have to respond to that mail. You would walk up to the person and say, Ghosh, mujhe ye chahiye aaj. He'll say, okay, aaj nahi de sakta, kal de dunga. In the morning, you'll say, today we're going to do an FS review of the loans and deposits module. This is the room, just come there at 10 o'clock. And everybody would just come, all right? Joining Business Objects in 2007 after 15 years at iFlex was a huge change for me. FlexCube was an application product, very rich in functionality, low on technology. Business Objects was very low really on functionality, it just did reporting, but very, very heavy on technology. It was joining a French company. For the first time in life, learning how to set up a meeting request. I'd never done that in my life, in the first 15 years of my life. So somebody said, send me a meeting request, and I said, ye kya hota hai? So that was, I think, the beginning of a huge risk. Step out of a risk zone. Business Objects was smaller than the team size that I had in iFlex. So my team size was much more smaller. But it was a risk that paid off.
Okay.
Totally.
I mean, I was just having a one-on-one with my manager last week, a couple of weeks back, and I raised a question as to what if I want to do something else tomorrow, and then what if there are multiple shifts, and what if I start not at zero, but again recalibrate, and then what if I have to start afresh?
Yep.
I am afraid to take that risk. But you just mentioned about a much bigger risk where you had to, where you started everything from scratch.
You never start zero because you inherently have learned a lot of things. Yeah. But yeah, sometimes going down to come back up again much stronger, right, and much more higher is okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so now let's shift towards Broadridge for a bit. Broadridge talks about the create culture. For those of you who don't know, it is customer-centric, respect, engaged associates, accountability, trust, and entrepreneurship. So how do you see this making its way into our everyday behaviors, especially when nobody is looking or when there's no oversight?
And that's a challenge. Right, building a culture where there is huge amount of respect, huge amount of trust, huge amount of accountability is very, very important. About 3 years back, we launched a campaign called I Am Boundless, which had two components to it leading to equal citizenship. Because India felt that they were possibly not being seen in the same light as their global counterpart. So we said you have to have two big straight changes in the way we operate. One was on ownership and the other one was on entrepreneurship. And the essence of that really falls back to create. So in ownership, we defined ownership in 3 blocks. And we said, we do deliver what we have been told to deliver. We deliver it really well. We deliver it with high quality. Moving from outputs to outcomes was important. So that was the next level of ownership, if I may say so. How is my customer leveraging what I build? Okay, how does it impact the customer's ecosystem? How are they integrating what I have released into their ecosystem, right? And the third aspect of ownership was impact, which was, is my customer now ready to be a reference customer? What did I make from that from a top line, bottom line perspective? Because the service profit chain is very, very important. Then the other thing was entrepreneurship, where I'm willing to take risks, small, large, big, medium size, whatever, but I'm willing to take small risks to start to make decisions that are difficult, right? And really leverage that aspect of being a startup, being a privately held startup. We are not a privately held company, so I don't know why I said that, but being really a public owned startup, being ensuring that we are delivering outcomes to the customer in a way that is perfect for the customer, may not be in a traditional way. Right? So those were the two pillars that we launched, and it was a very successful campaign that we did, but it was really orchestrated around Create. And we try and live those value systems every day.
Okay.
Specifically when nobody's watching, hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so in one of your talks, you had also mentioned something about understanding the purpose of work. So every associate, be it of
Yes.
somebody who's just joined or somebody who's there for like 10 plus, 20 plus years. So how do you ensure that a leader ensures the purpose or the clarity of work at a grassroots level? And how does a leader do it constantly? Because in the beginning, there might be a high and then it might dip.
Yeah.
So how do we keep that alive throughout?
Excellent question. So, 2, 3 things that we do over there. One is from an organization perspective, we have an annual event which is called the Foundations for Growth.
Okay.
And that year's strategy and the next 2 years' strategy is detailed out. So it's a recurring kind of event where you understand in detail what is the purpose of the year. That typically happens in July because July is the first month for us. And it also tells you why are we doing it and how will it impact the year after and the year after. So like a 3-year runway period. That happens for a select set of leaders, obviously, in the US. And then what we do is we bring that back and we cascade it to our leaders.
Okay.
And our VP and above population, which is about 80 people, and we add about 20 more leaders to that, so we make it a room of about 100 people, and we cascade it down to them, and then each one of them is supposed to build a 2-pager, either a slider or a document, and say, this is the purpose of my team. And that then gets cascaded together down to the rest of the organization, right? So that's a cascade which happens once a year. But we also do something called Ask Me Anything, which is, you come into a room like this and you can ask me any question and I'll answer those questions. What we have seen in the last 4 years is those questions have moved from I'm not getting my Sodexo card on time to, what's the kind of product that we are building, flavor of product that we are building for the Asia Pacific market versus what we are doing for the MEA market. So, life has kind of changed a lot because of that. So, if you get rid of all the things that are troubling your associates, they start to evolve and they start to think a little bit more differently. And if you're continuously in your all hands in any communication that you're doing, talking about the why, and you start with the why, that is something that really helps them to also evolve in their thought process and start to think about the why, what, and then the how.
Right, because
But it's a difficult culture to change.
Yeah, I mean, and it's extremely essential for anybody to think about the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
While they're
Yeah.
in their everyday
Absolutely.
activities.
See, when you define the why and you give the clarity of the purpose, you are no longer encouraging your team members to do a job. Okay? They are a part of the growth story then, right? Because they are encouraged, inspired, motivated to do much more. And then, weave that in with a culture of entrepreneurship, and you tell us what's the best way of doing this. They are that much more happier doing what they're doing.
Nice, really, really informative. You've been at it in the industry for, I don't know, 3 to 4 decades. So being
She's
constant.
making me sound really old.
I'm making you sound experienced. So
Half of this crowd won't have been born when I passed out of engineering, so it's okay.
So when does it ever get overwhelming? And in case it does get overwhelming, what grounds you? It may be probably reading a book, listening to shairis, or poems or any music of any sort, or travel or anything?
I think, and Lakshmi alluded to this in the beginning, mental stress is with everybody, right? All of us have, reasons uh, to, um, to feel stressed out, to have the anxiety. There could be fear issues whether I'm doing the right thing, whether I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do, especially for women, whether I'm able to, you know, do it in a perfect way. Am I the right daughter? Am I the right daughter-in-law? Am I the right mother, the right wife, the right peer? Everything, right? So mental stress is always there. Um, the way I deal with stress is I do a little bit of gardening. Um, I do different things. I do gardening. I sometimes read a book. But read a book is not a stress reliever for me generally. It's more a learning kind of an exercise. So I prefer to be in a cool state of mind when I'm reading and absorbing a book. But gardening, watching a movie, I can binge on Shah Rukh Khan endlessly. um, I sleep it off. Okay, there are times when I sleep it off. It gets really bad. I go to a corner, cry out loudly, get it out of the system, and say, it's done with. Now I'm ready for the world again. So it depends on how bad the stress is and how bad the feeling of hurt, the feeling of fear, the feeling of overwhelmness is. But that's what I do. In very extreme situations where I believe work is kind of slipping out of my hand, I start writing. I start writing what is not going well, what should it be, and what needs to take me there. And I have found the act of just putting it on paper and having that black and white piece read back to me calms me down and gives me a path forward. And when you have the path forward, you're anyway calmed down.
Nice.
So different things.
This is the basic intent of this question was to understand the human behind the leader, because every time we look at any leader, we will feel that he or she is picture perfect, that they're doing everything so well, everything so
Nobody is picture
effortlessly.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basic intent was to let everybody know that it's okay to let it out.
Yeah.
It's okay to have the lows and the highs.
Yeah.
It's all part of the process.
And sometimes your spouse is always there to have a fight with.
So last question before I open it for Q&A. What is that one key takeaway for the audience today? We've had so many key takeaways so far, but what is that one thing that you would say that anybody in this room can actively and consciously make it a part of their week, say it ambition or for leadership or for anything, so that they start their first step towards being a leader? Or
I'll say 2, 3 things. I won't restrict it to one. Never give up, right? There will be times in your careers where priorities will be more important than work. Find a way of continuing to work even with those priorities, right? Um, take a sabbatical for 3 months. Take an assignment that is easier. Decide, what needs to be done, but don't give up. So I always tell women that the easiest thing to do is I will give up. But remember, if you are in this room, your career is important to you. And if your career is important to you, you derive happiness from your career. And if that is the case, you will never be happy if you're not working. If you are not happy, your home is never going to be happy. Never. Okay? So don't give up. Right? Have conversations, have negotiations, find a way to make things happen. There's always a way. The second thing that I would say is, what's your me time in a day? Right? Even if it's 15 minutes, and that's my takeaway really for all of you. Even if it's 15 minutes, find that 15 minutes in the day. Don't sleep before you do those 15 minutes. So if that means, on a day you want to read something on LinkedIn, you want to read a book, you want to listen to your favorite music genre, you want to watch something that inspires you or calms you down, but have at least 15 minutes in a day that you can call your own. Ideally, it should be an hour. An hour is difficult. But 15 minutes in a day, find out that time and make sure that you spend 15 minutes on yourself. Trust me, it's the biggest de-stressor that you will have in life. Because when you make yourself happy, the world around you is happier. So that would be my thing. I learned this the hard way. One of my aunts asked me this question about 10 years back. And she's a very good family friend. Actually, my mother was with her when I was born. So there is a connection from that perspective. And she said, Sheenu, अपने लिए कितना time spend करती है? मेरे पास time नहीं है आंटी. And she said, 1 घंटा. मैंने बोला 1 घंटा तो बहुत मुश्किल है. 15 minutes. So I made a commit to her that day. It must be more than 10 years back. And it has made a difference to me. So I'll leave that with you.
Thank you so much. Now I would like to open the floor for Q&A. Anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Yes.
Mike.
Hi everyone. The session was really good. Like the question from me is, women are easily imposed to guilt from either family or in office. Easily they point and say like you didn't do these things properly, or these things didn't go well. If you have did this way, then things would have been fine. So how to handle these kind of situations and how you handle? Definitely you would have crossed these things, right, in your life. So
Yes. I think we should stop taking guilt. Right? And, Aishwarya alluded to this in the beginning. Being a coach, it tells you that the only thing that you can control is yourself. Right? The only person that you really have control on in the whole world is yourself. There's nobody else that you have control on. And if you kind of ensure that here you're not taking that guilt, I'm not saying don't do the work that you need to do, right? If you have to teach your child, if you have to ensure that there is food on the table, get that done, right? But do you need to get the food on the table, or do you need to ensure that the food is on the table? Is a question that you have to ask yourself. During COVID, somebody whom I don't know and I have not spoken to since then reached out to me on LinkedIn and to ask me that she wants my time as a mentee. And she said, I've taken a break because of COVID. So society is not allowing staff to come in. I don't have help at home. I've got 2 young children, but I'm really unhappy, right? And as COVID was wearing off, her husband was not allowing her to keep help at home. So after 2 or 3 discussions, I said, you can decide, right, whether you want to do this or not, because I didn't see her taking any action. And I asked her a question at the end of the call. I think it was the 3rd call. And I said, I want you to think about this, and I don't want you to answer this question today. But come back to me and answer this question to me. I said, think and tell me, do you believe that your husband loves you? And I could see it in her eyes that she didn't know what to answer to that question, right? But she came back after a day and she said, I'm ready. And she said, I think he does. So I said, if he loves you and he cares for you, sit down with him and say, this is important for my happiness, and he'll understand. She wanted to keep a full-time staff at home. They agreed to keep a staff from 6 in the morning to 8 in the night. Problem solved. So sometimes it's just in our minds, right? All she needed to do was tell her spouse that my career matters to me, right? Instead of, reaching out to somebody, finding out somebody on LinkedIn and, reaching out and talking to that woman and getting that. It's in our minds. It's really in our minds. If somebody tells you something and it hurts you at office, don't do it in public, but one-on-one. What stops you from going and saying, I didn't like what you said? Would there have been a better way of saying the same thing? Right? very recently, about 2 years back, somebody from Dell, my previous company, called me up and said that, we have started doing these meetings again, and the men in the room believe that I will arrange for samosas and chai. So I said, next time there is a meeting, buy yourself a samosa and a chai from the cafeteria on top and put it next to you. Okay? You're making a statement. You've not said anything, but you have made a statement. I'll buy for myself. I'm not going to arrange things for you. Right? If you don't do that, nobody else is going to do it for you. So it is the small biases that exist in the world. I have found that men don't want to be bad. They sometimes just don't realize. So it is important for us to make them realize that. Right? I had a conversation with my spouse about 20 years back. We've been married for 30, 31 years now. And I told him, I said, just because I'm a woman, you're saying this to me? And he just looked at me. He's never said it again. He's never said it again. And I think he became a better manager because of that. So, it's our job also to stop taking shit and, calling out that, you gave me shit just now. It is. Yeah.
Anybody else?
You have a mic there behind you.
Oh, thank you.
First of all, this was great, Sheenam. And I can relate a lot because I came from a town that had 2 schools as well. And it's very similar, like my dad was in a steel company.
Which town was that?
Tarapur?
Tarapur, okay.
Yeah. So that's why I know Ulhasnagar and what all you said. So it was actually very, I got very emotional when you shared your story because I come from US. So I'm actually based out of US right now. And I could relate so much with you. So you have not dated yourself. I'm here, another one with you. So I think the question, right, in a leadership position myself, I've done, many of these and younger of, so many people sitting here ask us. One thing I wanted to ask you was, we grew up in a very male-dominating, right, society. I think it's much better now than when we were engineers. I'm assuming you must have faced in your work, right? Like whether you call it biases or perception that, hey, she's very pushy or she's very opinionated. Whereas if men do the same, they're very good leaders. So what advice you would give to this room of younger to handle that?
And it happens. And, we are more emotional than our male counterparts. I won't say not all men are as emotional as us, but most men have a degree of control on emotions and women do. And because of that, sometimes emotions are right here. And, hurt, anger is right there. Even today, there are times when people can push me into an edge, but I have over time understood that, that's happening and can smile it away. But when I was much younger, possibly dated back to 20 years from now, right? My coach actually told me 2, 3 things. He said, drink a glass of water when you're being pushed. If there is no water, say, I need water, and walk out. Or say, I need to go to the washroom. If you can't do any of that, count from 10 backwards to 1. It calms you down. So you don't react, you respond. So that's persona number 1. Persona number 2 is that you need to be aggressive. You need to be assertive. You need to ensure that your viewpoint is heard. Okay, go with data. Don't just go with your gut feeling. So go with data. Data is very important. Once you have data and you have the science behind it, nobody can challenge you. The third thing that I learned in those years was if there is a room full of 10 people, I identify the people who are my promoters, the people who are neutral, and ensure that the people who are my promoters and the people who are neutral have heard the idea already, have heard what I want to present. I have debated with them so that when I start to present, there are more people talking my language in the room than just me, right? And it always helps to have, people who are aligning to your idea. It gives you a natural ego boost. It gives you, the necessary dopamine to do better in that scenario. So those would be the things that I would leave you with.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello. Sheenam, I'm Samiksha. I have been working for past 20 plus years, and it has been a delight to watch you, listen to you today. You mentioned something earlier in your conversation. You said earlier I was cheerful, bubbly,
I
I
still
used to
am.
laugh. Thankfully. Okay,
Yes.
you didn't mention that then.
Yeah.
I was wondering, as we progress in our professional careers, in our personal lives as well, we tend to try and box ourselves into stereotypes of roles that the society has sought for us, we have sought out ourselves. Okay, now a mother has to be a certain way, a wife looks a certain way, a professional woman behaves a certain way, and so on and so forth. So for our leadership styles as well, okay, there are certain boxes that are there, and I find myself very often questioning because I am a very different person internally, okay? And I want to be genuine. I am most often genuine. I get called out for it, for my blatant honesty sometimes. But I do want to carve out that persona for myself where I don't want to be boxed as a leader. I can find my own path, okay? And it's sometimes very tough. So the question I have for you is, along your way, you have met so many people with your experience. What do you think we should do in these situations? Because there are times when I feel pushed that I should get boxed, I should comply. And then there are times when I say, I want to just break free, and let me try. I fail. But there is a cost to it too.
Yeah. So, as you grow, Samiksha, and thank you for introducing yourself, I think it's very important to align, but it's important to align also with the core values that you have, right? If I start to giggle and start to, really have fun in this kind of an audience, okay, I don't think the impact will be as high, right? So when I want to have fun, I will have fun, right? If I'm out on a cruise with my team, all hairs are down. I'm dancing, I'm having fun, singing, doing everything that's needed to be done. But the next day morning, in a room, I'm back to being their leader. So there is a box that comes with everything. And I don't think we can deny that box, right? Whether it's a father or a mother, there is a box for everything. How do you lead like yourself in that box is very important, right? And that's the basic thing that you have to have. I'm a part of the executive leadership team at Broadridge, and my brand in that team is that I'm a fearless leader, right? I don't hesitate to call out a spade a spade. I don't hesitate to ask for things that my team needs. I don't hesitate to say, you are being unfair to India in a room of people. But if I believe that I will have higher impact doing it one-on-one, I have now learned over time to do it one-on-one. Okay. I have had situations where I have burnt myself saying it in a room and figured that, one needs to understand the environment, one needs to understand who is the persona that you're talking to, and what kind of impact it could have on that persona, right? So be as direct as you want to be. Just decide where it will have the most impact and get you what you want. That would be my thing to you, because I am exactly like that, right? I've learned to keep quiet in a room where I believe being direct would be it'll be detrimental to the cause that I'm fighting for. I've learned over time. But my brand is still that Sheenam's really direct, right? And that Sheenam will ask for stuff if she believes that this is not right. So you have to decide how to box that, because leadership is also about understanding, whom you're talking to and what you can do in that environment, right? We have tribes in our organization. I'm a part of the dance tribe. But can I go out and do everything that an associate does? The answer is unfortunately no. Right? That's what the position does to you. But can I dance with my friends? The answer is yes. So you have to find out avenues for where that particular aspect of your personality comes out. But boxing is not limited to women. That much I can tell you. Yeah. Go ahead. We'll come to her. Okay.
Hi, Jeevita here.
Hi, Jivita.
So you said you are a problem solver, right?
Yes.
Which
I love to
Exactly.
solve puzzles also. Yeah.
Exactly. So I can relate to that. I have been a problem solver most of my life, and there is a high that you get every time you solve a problem. So I need your advice to give me a strategy on choosing my problems to solve, right? At times I've solved problems which were not even mine in the first place to solve. And then I'm like, why did I spend all the time solving the problem? So how do I choose my problems to solve?
There's limited time in the world, so choosing what you want to solve for is very, very important, right? And I'm sure Ranzi will tell you this also. At positions like this, you really have to decide what you want to choose to fight for and not to fight for, and allow somebody else to fight for. So the question that I ask myself is, am I the only person who can solve this problem? Is there somebody else who can solve this problem and I can watch it from behind and enable it if needed? Is this my problem to solve for, first of all? Right? And, and if it is, then also I ask my question, is there help that I can get to solve for the problem? Right? So those questions you have to ask yourself. Because दुनिया में बहुत गम है, सब गम हम नहीं solve कर सकते. It's not possible. It's just not possible. Right? So you have to figure out in your daily life, even at home, who can solve that problem for you, right? There's always a Swiggy and an Instamart now.
Thank you.
Yes, you had a question.
Hi, Sheenam.
Hi.
This is Divya here.
Hi, Divya.
Thank you for such insightful conversation, really inspiring. You talked about evolving leadership. I think with the Gen Zs, millennials, and the Gen Alphas coming into the workforces, how do you strike a balance on how you deal with the millennials versus how you deal with the Gen Alphas? And do you also see the directional leadership kind of diluting as we start more focusing on the Gen Alphas and working with them? What do you think there are a couple of traits that we as leaders should focus on as we start dealing with and getting work, the impactful work done from the Gen Alphas and the Gen Ys?
Great question. As I have not dealt with too many Gen Alphas yet, but millennials, Gen Zs, I think value systems remain the same. All of them want to progress in life. All of them want a successful career. How they want it and the path they want to choose to it changes, right? I have a 28-year-old home, and he chose to do a degree in economics and statistics because he thought his parents were really stupid They were both engineers. They worked really hard. Today, he's a product manager, a data science product manager. And 2 years back, he asked me, "Why didn't you force me to be an engineer? And I would have been that much more better." And I reminded him of all the arguments and the debates that we used to have at home. And I'm of the principal opinion that you should allow a child to do what the child wants to do. So while I tried to influence, I didn't force it down his gut, literally. And he asked me that question. And a lot of parents did that. Why didn't you do it? I said, you wanted to. It's your life. Finally, you have to decide what needs to be done. But today, he is possibly as hardworking as I am. But he's very different from who I am too, right? We were at his place in September. He's here right now, just going back, actually leaving tonight. He's learned on his own to be a professional DJ. He bought his own board, and he did his first public performance in a club 2 months back. His next one is on Friday. So I don't believe I would have dared to do something like that, right? I think what this generation wants is to be successful in multiple things, and to be able to derive pleasure from those multiple things. As leaders in the organization, we have to ensure that we give them that environment. We give them a fabric that they can find such avenues within the organization, and therefore, become far more productive for us. Reverse mentoring helps, listening to what they are saying, listening to what's important. When some of my leaders came and brought me this idea of tribes, and we have opened a book tribe, a music tribe, a dance tribe. I said, ठीक है, कर लेते हैं experiment, कितने लोग आएंगे मालूम नहीं. We recently did the launch of the dance tribe in Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Bangalore, and we had a 3-hour packed agenda, right? And I don't know how many videos floated around after that. So it just tells you that listening, being inclusive, will help you get the best out of people. So that's what I would say. There is no mantra for this. Believe that they want to do well, believe that they want to be successful because they want to, right? You have to adapt to their way of working so that the two of you are in harmony and can live. Don't preach, right? Hamare time mein aisa hota tha. Doesn't happen any longer. You can't do that with the children of today's age. That is what I would say.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we can close the Q&A in the interest of time. It was an absolute pleasure to have you here, and it was an extremely insightful conversation. For somebody like me who's in the early stage of my career, I was delighted to share the stage with you and sit alongside you and ask you all these questions and get
If
very,
Lakshmi
very...
had not told me that you interned last year, I would have never known that you had just a year of experience. So it's been an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's
That's a
been
huge
an
compliment.
absolute
Thank you.
honor and pleasure.
Thank you so much. With a heavy heart, we'll have to end the fireside chat. But I would like to invite Anzi on stage to just thank you and give you a very small token.
Thanks.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Always. Andy and I go back to SAP. So.